Hey there, friends. This is Bill MacDonald, the Come On Sense Math Doctor, using the five senses, or what I sometimes call the six senses, to help your kids connect to very difficult concepts and you in math using the visual, the eyes there, the verbal, the things that you might say, the hearing and the listening, not just hearing, but actually listening, speaking it out, and then sometimes using your nose as a pointer to focus on something, or in some cases, to make it more appealing in the lesson, to smell something that appeals to your sense of smell or to taste, and then the fingers, the hands to touch and make things more kinesthetic. Now, I'm going to share with you a saying that I want you to write down, as one of my teaching mentors says. This is a writer downer, something you should probably write down to remember. It takes one, O-N-E, to know one, the number. It takes one, O-N-E, to know one. Once you know what something is in terms of measurement, then you can know other things that can relate to that one in the real world, the math world. So I want to show you something here that has to do with a question that we're going to be looking at in a moment. And this is a pen. All right. Pens have a specific length and they tend to be about the same regardless of which pen that you might grab. If you get a normal pen, here's even that kind of pen that you can use on your on a screen where you can do a touch screen and make things happen. All of these pens here are about the same length in terms of inches or centimeters. But since my question today is going to be about inches, I'm going to tell you that it takes one of these to know one. One pen is approximately 6 inches in length. 6 inches is a half a foot. Okay, so before I get into the problem regarding the length of a toy plane, I want to show you from my mathematics posters 2 areas of measurement: length when it comes to customary compared to length when it comes to metric. This is in your mathematics posters for all of you that have them, along with the mathematics charts. And they actually come when you purchase the 3rd, 4th through 8th grade math and algebra practice tests that I make. They actually come with the math posters and the math advanced or primary mathematics chart. So to make sure that you can maximize their value, it's probably important that you show your kids, when it comes to measurement, that it takes one to know one. So 1/4 in diameter, the distance across the center is about 1 inch. So remember that diameter is the distance across the center of, in this case, a circular object. And let me make this a little bit bigger on me so that you can see me and the concepts that I'm trying to share. The radius is halfway across. Well, it says there the diameter of a quarter is about 1 inch. One sheet of paper is about 8.5 inches by 11 inches, 8.5 wide by 11 inches long. A square tile is 1 foot squared, 12 inches by 12 inches. Moving up in the world, and I can see my videos lagging a little bit, probably because my son is in the other room playing one of his high-end, high gigabyte dragging video games that will tend to slow me down, but hopefully you can focus on the content and listen to what I'm saying, even if the video and the audio don't quite match up. Just pretend like I'm one of those foreign movies where they say ha ha hoo ha and the hands are not quite in the line with what the person is saying when he's saying it. So an average adult is about 5 to 6 feet in height. The distance for a home run in feet is about 300 to 400 feet, depending on which part of the park that you're talking about. And some are more challenging in Major League Baseball than they are in college, and more challenging in college than they are in high school or in Little League or Pee Wee. Since we have to practice conversions, then that same 300 to 400 feet would be about 100 to 133 1/3 yards in length. 4 laps around a track is 1 mile. So you can just imagine yourself going around 4 times. It's also 1,760 feet, yards, or 5,280 feet. I just have that memorized in my head because I was a math teacher and I'm a math minor. That was my minor in college. And in case you were wondering, if you want to go from the top to the bottom of Texas, or since I live in the bottom in the Rio Grande Valley, from the bottom to the top, that's about 900 miles. It's about 500 miles to Dallas. But if you keep going from corner to corner, you're almost going to hit close to 900 miles. So that's knowing, taking one to know one. So from now on, a couple of things. A square tile is 1 square foot. The diameter of a quarter is 1 inch in length. 1 mile is 4 laps around the track. 1 baseball field is about 300 feet. 1 human is about 5 or 6 feet tall. 1 length from the top to the bottom of Texas is about 900 miles. So when we switch to the metric system, that's where it gets a little bit more difficult for some kids. So I'm going to say something for you that you might also want to add to your writer downer list. Kilo, hecto, decameter, deci, centi, millimeter. Let me say that slower. Kilo, hecto, decameter, deci, centi, millimeter. And if it's true that it takes one, O-N-E, one of these items to know one, then let's see a couple of them. The thickness of a dime is about a millimeter. The thickness of a credit card is that same, about 1 millimeter, not the length or the width. The thickness of an eraser, or those little stickers that you can put on a kid's paper, those are about 1 centimeter. When you close your hand, you have what we call a decimeter. The average fingernail is about 1 centimeter. So depending on the student and the age or the size of the student, remind them that it's about 1 centimeter, or you can say the thickness of your pinky could be a centimeter. When I close my hand and I place that like this, that's a decimeter. The height of a giraffe is about 5 meters. The average length of a school bus is 1.5 decameters or 15 meters. And in case you were wondering, something that I teach students when I do my math trainings, whenever you take a meter stick and place it on the floor with 0 at the floor and put it up to against a doorknob, the distance from the floor to the doorknob is 1 meter. That's important for something that I'm going to show you. And then 9 kilometers or 9,000 meters is the height at the highest point of Mount Everest. Now let's say these in order. Kilo, hecto, decameter, decicenti, millimeter. Kilometer is 1.5, sorry, a kilometer is the distance One kilometer is 0.625 of a mile. Okay, so it's 6/10 of a mile. So if a mile is 4 times around a track, well, a kilometer would be 2.5 laps around the track. So if you think about that, 2 laps around, that's 800 meters, and then 200 more meters is 1,000 meters, 1 kilometer. You would also want to get in your car, set your trip odometer to 0, and go 0.625, 625 thousandths of a mile, because that way you'll be able to help your kids figure out how far is exactly the parking lot of our school 1 kilometer away. What land object could I use? That's kilo, hecto. 10 classrooms in length is a hectometer. Also about the length of a football field. Decameter, kilo, hecto, deca. 1 classroom in length, if you lay down your meter stick, is 1 decameter. 1 meter is from the floor to where my belt is. And so if I was to place my hands on my belt and walk over to the door that I told you about, I know that 39 inches, 1 meter, is the distance from the floor to the door knob. And if you check that, you're going to see it's about 39 inches, which is about 1 meter. And so once you know 1 meter, the floor to where the doorknob is. Kilo, hecto, decameter, deci, the thickness of my hand. Centi, the thickness of my pinky. And milli, the thickness of my fingernail, a dime, or a credit card. So that's why I'm saying that saying, it takes 1, O-N-E, to know 1. Once I can relate to what 1 of something is, 1 something, 1 being the number, and the key word being an object, then it makes it a lot easier for your kids to understand relative terms that they can relate to. So let's take a look at a question they asked your 4th graders about length, and let's see what they're talking about. I see the word inches, so that's customary measurement. All right, there's the problem. Problems have periods. Questions tend to have question marks, so this information is part of the problem. Is there a question anywhere? No, not this time. It just says to do something to find out the information that's given. So we'll read the problem first. It says, sure I can see, the list below shows the length in inches, 1/4. And so if I'm going to remember that, make sure I'll use a pencil in case I need to erase for you guys. Sorry about that. 1/4. So what I'm showing you is the length in inches of some toy planes. And so every time I think of an inch, I'm going to think of 1/4 of a dollar, its diameter of some toy planes. Where did this question come from? I made it modeled after number 13 on our state test, and only 51% of the students knew how to take a list of numbers that had more than one and match it to a, what you call here, a dot plot that is the same as the one that we're going to draw. So I always say that we live in an open-ended world until we get into a classroom where it becomes multiple choice. So let's create an open-ended dot graph using the information that's given. So I see that my lowest number is a 5. So on my number line that I'm going to use, because I can see that they're using a number line, not a bar graph, not a line graph, not a pictograph. They're going to use a dot graph. So we're going to make a number line and try to make the distance between the numbers approximately the same. I'm going to start with one number below the lowest number and end with one number above the highest number, just so that we can have a number line that's feasible to make sure we have all the numbers that we need. So I have a 7, and so I check it off and I marked 1 7, a 6, a dot. Okay, and what I'll do is to make sure they match up. There's the 7, there's the 6, 1 more 7, an 8, a 9, a 5, a 7, a 6, and an 8 that's already given. So what's that little box there? A lot of kids are not even going to pay attention to the box. All they're going to do is stop and say, okay, let me go look for this answer, this dot looking line in the answer choices. But let's read on. The toy plane that still needs to be measured is shown below. Use the ruler provided to measure the length of the toy plane to the nearest inch. And what did I tell you? When I take a regular pen and set it down, I'm already going to be able to tell that the length of this toy plane, this one that's in paper here, is going to be about 6 inches, because I showed you that. It takes one to know one, but I don't want my kids to guess. So am I using the metric system? No, but I am using the customary system of measurement. So you don't teach your kids to place the edge of the paper against the edge of the paper. You teach your kids to place 0 where the object that you're measuring starts. So we've got 1/4, 2/4, all the way to 6/4 in length, 6 inches in length for this toy. So it says the toy that needs to be measured is shown below. So that would be a 6. And so you'd have to use the ruler. That's what we just did. So what we need to look for is one that looks exactly like this, except for it has to have one more 6. So we're looking for one with 3 6s in the graph. Now, let's do what I call the process of elimination. Letter F, we're going to automatically eliminate it because it looks exactly the same as the one above, except it forgot to add the 6. And so probably half of the kids that got it wrong might have chosen the one that was the same as the one they possibly drew. Letter H is the correct answer. It looks exactly the same as letter F, except it has the extra dot that was created when we measured the toy plane that was missing from the dot graph that we have. What's wrong with letter G? We needed 2 planes that were 8 inches in length, and there was only one. So if I have to draw it in there, I'm going to eliminate. Letter J, we know that there was one plane that was 5, and so right away we can eliminate it. And so even though all of these incorrect ones only had one piece of data missing, if your kids are not careful, they're going to pick that because, well, it's almost perfect. No, it has to be exactly matching the one above plus the one that we add when we measure using our actual inch ruler. But it takes one person to know that a pen is about 6 inches in length. And there it is right there. So that's a couple of strategies. I hope that you find measurement, regardless of what you're measuring, that I'm going to say it one last time, that it takes one seeing something with your eyes right there. Let me see if I can point to it. Once I see one, it triggers my brain to think of an object that is that same length, so that I would be able to say, oh, 1 inch is 1/4 the diameter of 1/4. Back to that quick review for those of you that might want to write it down. Kilo, hecto, decameter, deci, centi, millimeter. Metric length is hard for a lot of kids. So a kilometer is 625 thousandths of a mile in your trip odometer, or 2.5 laps around a track. Kilo, hecto. A hectometer, this way, this way. A hectometer is 10 classrooms in length, or about a football field in length. Kilo, hecto, deca, 1 classroom in length. Usually the longest and sometimes the length of the classroom or the width, you're going to be able to find kilo, hecto, deca, about a decameter. Decameter, we said, is going to be 39 inches, or the floor to the door when you measure using a meter stick. Kilo, hecto, decameter. Deci, the length from the top of your closed fist to the bottom. Centi, the thickness of your pinky. The length of one of your fingernails, depending on your age or your size. The thickness of a sticker or a pencil, or a millimeter, the thickness of your fingernail if you were to tear it off. The thickness of a dime or a credit card. So there you have it. Teach that strategy to make math visual, mental, and verbal for your kids. It takes one O&E to know what one of something is. Take care. Share this video with your friends. Goodbye and God bless.